So welcome to the podcast, Ed. We just kind of met each other via social media. Just to give him a little bit of an intro here for those that don't know Ed. Obviously, pro boxing career, did pretty well for himself, 13-1-1. Transitioned to an author. Was actually writing during all that. And my man's a little bit of a scholar too. Graduated top of class in the Army, BA in physics. So
Man, that's cool. I didn't know you knew that about me on the BA in the talking about the class in my AIT class. I had no idea because I posted a picture of that a while ago. But like so a while ago, that was you know it's funny, man. Time flies. I graduated from AIT in in December 2013, so almost 7 years ago. That's nuts how much your life can change.
yeah, man. Like I'm looking at your background. I was like, I've seen how much success you got. You got a big following on Instagram, Twitter too, and your books are doing well. And I'm like, he must be doing this for a while. I mean, but that is a while. But it's crazy, like how you're right. It is quick
Oh man,
though. It's quick, right?
you want to?
2016.
I think about this a lot. Like it's funny because we were me and my girl at the gym today, and I looked at a memory. You know how Facebook does memories, and it was we went and saw Taming of the Shrew at the local kind of Shakespeare in the Park is what they call it here, and that was also the day we did some berry picking. I was like, wow, like that seems long ago, but that seems so recent. I guess was what I was thinking, but it was only 4 years ago, and it's crazy. But yeah, when you put your head down and you're busy doing stuff and working, and you have a purpose, yeah, things can change a lot. Like dude, it's not even comparable where I was to where I am now. You know, we're just gonna use that time point of 2013 when since that's how we kind of moved into this conversation. 2013 when I graduated from the army and I did that, and I went to the army because I needed like for one I had a trash resume just in general, but I also was like, oh, I'm gonna go back to school and prepare myself to get a job. This was way before how I think now. And and so I was like the only way to do it is to just get a higher paying job and everything. But I didn't have a high paying that in fact what I was doing at that moment, the army's paying you and you come out. I got a job as a bank teller when I got back. It was like I think they were paying I want to say 11, but it was probably $10 an hour. That feels
Mm.
about right. And started going to class and training and doing a hard thing, and it was a very hard thing. There were some days I was just like, what the hell am I even doing this for? Oh, okay, that's right, because one day I'm gonna be 35 and I don't want to be a loser, which was this dude. A lot of people do not think about the future. Like they think about it like they know it's kind of coming, but
hmm
they don't really project themselves. We're very bad it's at this. It's very hard for humans
hmm
to do it. I found out like it's not a nat in fact that's like the thing that's well one of the things that separates us from the animals, and that we can look at um a bunch of variables and we can make a plan to deal with contingencies plus what should happen. We can do that. Animals can't do that, right? That's one of the things that makes humans unique. But we don't even do it that well. Like most people are not very good at it, which is why most people don't do it. You can see it in everything in their life.
Yeah, like they're not really like that's such an amazing point actually because I think a lot of people who are in this world they quickly judge themselves on like a year, right? What's that quote? It's you
We,
underestimate what you can accomplish like in 10 years versus like the 1 year. It's like
yeah, we overestimate what we can accomplish in a year and underestimate what we can
right.
accomplish in 10. And that is that is like quintessential human thinking.
Facts.
It's like, or I say it another way. I say, because you want it quickly, you're never going to get it at all. And that is, people look at people like we'll just use going to the gym because that's a very easy, visible example and one that anyone can accomplish. Just working out. You get your nutrition in order and you start hitting the weights and everything. And a lot of people don't stick with this because the results aren't instant. But if you ate at a slight caloric deficit for 30 days and went and lifted, and got some kind of motion. I know you're not supposed to lift every day, but let's say like you lifted every day, but it was light, and you took a walk, your body would change. And that's not a long time. That's 1 month. But people can't stick with it because after 1 week, they're like, what's wrong? The scale will only moved a pound. And they're like, or not at all because they don't understand what they're looking for. And it's the same with these, I think about my degree, and there was a time, it was like right around 2015, 2016 ish, right, where I was too far in to even remotely think about quitting or doing something different, but I wasn't far enough to where I could like see the finish line. And that's the worst place to be because then you find out how much you love what you're doing because you don't have the initial boost of starting something new, and you don't have the motivation of all I got to do is get through it. Like, no, you're in there in the process and you're learning and working through it. You're really doing the hard work. Same with fighting, same with building a website, same with writing book. Like everything follows that kind of trajectory. And a lot of people never, because I really feel like once you get to the middle and you accept that this is, 'cause that's what it is, it's an acceptance. You accept that this is not going to be a particularly pleasant thing, but the outcome is what you're after. I think you can stick with it, but there's a lot of distraction. People are not trained to do things long and hard anymore. It's a very different world.
Yeah, you finish on like such a point that I definitely want to talk about today because like, I coach guys going through breakups. We're talking about masculinity. We're talking about kind of like building discipline, right, in your lives. And a lot of the guys that I got that I'm coaching, they don't come from like these big, nice schools or anything. They're usually lower on the totem pole when they're getting started. So you mentioned like what is kind of this one thing that, like, if you were to give them one attribute, one value they could stick by that would help them start to build momentum and like consistency, would it be discipline? Like, is there certain like
It's the that book by Angela Duckworth called Grit. She summed that up, and if you want to define grit, I think I found a pretty good definition. Let me see if I can get this right. It's the ability to persist towards a goal despite temporary setbacks or difficulties that you encounter. All right. So implied in that, it's not explicitly said, but implied in that definition is that it's going to take a while and that it's going to sometimes well, not sometimes, you will reach a point where you don't see the goal and you're not where you were before. You're in this darkness, and a lot of people, instead of pushing forward and just going to the other side, they regress back to what is familiar, to what is comfortable. So to give someone like one blanket overall arching piece of advice that like won't get you will keep you out of trouble and make help you make the most progress is you want to develop grit. You want to develop your ability to persist in the face of difficulty, and that takes a lot of that takes a lot of faith that the outcomes still going to be worth it, but it takes a high pain tolerance. um I think people don't have a pain tolerance anymore because not because you know what it's real easy to say that people are getting soft. And I mean, okay, from like a pure outcome perspective, sure. One cannot argue that if people could put up with a little more, they'd be a little better off financially or health wise in a relationship. But I think the bigger problem is one that we don't talk about enough is how many distractions there are. Like I've got to fight this when I'm sitting and writing and my brain goes, we could be watching some shit on YouTube right now. Like, nah, man, like we got to stay focused. When I'm working, it's not so hard working out because that's a lifelong habit. And plus
Mhm.
the gym, if you're doing it correctly, there isn't really a chance to be distracted in the gym and go do other things. but like people today date like it's fast food. It's like, all right, this person we had a small argument. That's it. Time to bounce. Instead of working through it and realizing that like you're not gonna like the person most of the. I mean, I want to know you'll like the person most of the time. What I tell my girls, I say I like you like 80% of the time. Now it's like 85%, right? That 15% you learn to navigate, and it's not even really dislike. It's just it's the fundamental differences that occur from being a man and a woman, and two people with completely different backgrounds clash and figuring things out, and a relationship is built navigating that space, right? So these are the things. I mean, this is how it goes. You know, if you can remember that it's going to be unpleasant, and you can just stick through that in pursuit of what you're trying to go after long term, be able to knock it out.
Yeah, man. You mentioned a lot of awesome stuff, but I did want to talk about, because I know you've mentioned a little bit in your content recently, kind of like against the grain a little bit of maybe your own way of thinking, which is like, grit, suffering, like go through the grind. Like, so where in your head now you've been through a lot of suffering, like in your background and everything. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
you know what it is. Like where is this threshold where it begins to be like, okay, now you're just hurting yourself, like there's no progress, you're
Well, okay,
just
yeah, yeah, and
mm,
it takes the hardest person, or there are two ways to look at this. You can go the hardest person to be honest with is yourself, or the easiest person to fool is yourself. Both of those more or less mean the same thing. That by virtue of trying to self-reflect, the the image gets distorted. Okay, and what you have to work on constantly is being able to have a clear image of yourself and be able to perform accurate self-assessment. That's if you can perform it, the more accurate your self-assessment is, the more likely you are to do good things. And if
mm,
you can't, and if you have to get in the ballpark, like it's not accurate, it's inaccurate, much better to err on the side of being too hard on yourself than too easy. Okay, so if you're able to develop that skill, then you can look and see, okay, is it time to call this quits, or am I just being a little bitch, right? Well, what is it should we do? That's how you know. But if you don't have accurate self-assessment, and people are really bad at accurate self-assessment, because a lot of times that means facing weaknesses that you perhaps haven't even accepted exist, or facing a weakness that everyone else believes is a strength. This is one of those things I encountered with when I got sober. I had to admit that I was not in control. I wasn't doing things right. I had to go, okay, this is my issue. This is my weakness. I'm a loser. My life is not going according to plan. Now that I've admitted that to myself, now I can calibrate. But imagine if I'm lying to myself and I start to believe my own lie. If I say everything is going well, I'm one big fight away from breaking this thing open and being the man. I don't need school, whatever. I don't need to work on myself. It's all good. Well, who knows where I would be? I actually think about this sometimes, and it's terrifying. Like if certain decisions,
damn.
if I had made them, and the reason I made those decisions is because there were moments of accurate self assessment. When I went to the army, it was right after I had a moment of accurate self assessment where I said, "This is embarrassing. I'm 27 and I am working for it was 9.28 an hour at T-Mobile, and my buddies let me stay on his couch, not on his couch, but he had a room in his house, and let me rent the room for $200 a month because that's all I could afford. That some people will lie to themselves. I was like, this is terrible. I'm losing. I'm better than this. My ego is not matching up with what my actual life is. And I'm not about to adjust my ego. So let me go adjust my life. That's accurate self assessment. Same with getting sober. I go, okay, every time I pick up the bottle, I end up causing some problem that I got to navigate and deal with. And it's only a matter of time before my friends get tired of this. So let me put this down. It's only a matter of time before I go to prison. Let me put this down. Accurate self assessment. A lot of people lie to themselves. Well, what is the first step in AA? You got to admit you got a problem.
Mm,
That's why you can't do anything else if you don't admit that something's wrong. And there's a lot of application in that across other areas of your life.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. And for people that don't know your background, Ed's background, he went through a lot of struggle, right? I mean, boxing, like the sport of itself, is a struggle, right? You're going into you're going into
Boxing,
the battlefield, right? Like you're going into a battlefield.
boxing's miserable.
That's what I mean. What you're doing right now, right? Probably is like it's like cozy compared to like get
People don't
preparing for a fight.
understand. Everyone, but every now and then someone will ask me, "Yo, why'd you quit?" I'm like, "You don't understand. You just don't get it." And because fighters never ask me that question. They know, they understand.
Yeah.
Especially someone who fought pro, they know, man, this is the terrible. It's the what a Doyle Brunson used to have this quote. I don't know if you know who Doyle Brunson is. Doyle Brunson is a great poker player, one of the guys, a Hall of Fame poker guys. And he used to say, poker is a hard way to make an easy living. Okay, what I've said about boxing is that it is a hard way to make an even harder living because you you don't. It's the worst of both worlds. Okay, it's the worst of the 9 to 5 world. And what's the worst part about that? Well, you got to work a 9 to 5. Someone else controls your time. I got to go to the gym when my coach is at the gym. If I got to fight when they tell me there's a fight, I got to. And on top of that, once I got signed, I got to fight a certain amount of times, and I got to be in the gym a certain number of hours, right? And my salary is capped. Okay. So I can't make any more money. That's the worst of that. It's also the worst of the entrepreneur world because what's the worst part about the entrepreneur world? Ain't no certainty, right? I have 1 month. Unfortunately, this hasn't happened in a while, but yeah, 1 month where I knock out 15 grand, another month where it's 500. Now, that shouldn't happen, but that example, that variance is not uncommon, and if you're not, that's rough. You got to develop a certain amount of skills to deal with that alone. Okay, most fighters ain't got them skills. Fortunately, I did, but that's why it's the worst of both worlds. You got the uncertainty of entrepreneurship, and that I don't know if I'm going to be able to fight, if my opponent's going to make it, how many tickets I'm going to sell, whatever. And then I got but I'm still locked in, like I am an employee. It's a lot closer to the music world, but yeah, that's a terrible. Uh, and I mean, I'm really happy I did it because it single-handedly changed many aspects of me and my life. But I would not. So like if I had to do it all over again, like right now, I'd be like, nope, nope. Life is too good. Now I still train and I help guys out. I still even spar with guys, but I will not. I am so past the point of wanting to devote the time and energy it takes to get ready for a competitive fight
Mm.
and what I stand, and now I have shit to lose, like cognition. Before I didn't care about that before because I started fighting when I was 23
Yeah.
and I had literally nothing else. Now I kind of make a living with my mind. I'm gonna slow down for a minute. On top of that, and I actually don't buy that there's that much brain damage in the first place. But I don't want a concussion. I've had enough of those from fighting. That's miserable. I like my free time. I like being able to travel whenever I want to. You can't do that when you fight. And I'm fortunate. I'm a heavyweight, so I could eat whatever I wanted to and still can. But traveling though, it's not
Yeah,
happening.
man, I hear you on that. I hear you on that. Well, I didn't want to skip up on something you said earlier. I mean, the self-assessment piece, which is like you said, it's immensely difficult for a lot of people to properly gauge like where they need to improve. Like, and a lot of it's self-image, like ego shit too. Like they can't
Yep.
see it. So when you were going through this period, like, and it was just a lot of really low moments, and it's like you're facing the truths, like any specific tips for like someone who's like they just are confused, right? Like a lot of guys that work with me, they have emotional confusion. We talk about spirituality as a piece to like introduce to their life to help them like access some of the truths they've not really been understanding about themselves. For you, like what kind of helped you during this self-assessment phase? I mean, was it just a you had to kind of just kick in the ass, or was it just
No. I mean, the story I tell people. You ever see the Matrix?
oh yeah.
Okay, and so there's that scene when they're taking Neo to meet Morpheus for the first time, and he's like, oh right, and right before he had that dream where the agents put that bug in his stomach. Or he thought it was a dream, and then Trinity breaks out the machine, sucks the bug out, throws it out, and Neo's like, "Fuck this, man, I'm out." Right, and he's about to run, and Trinity stops him, and she's like, "Yo, you don't want to do that." And he goes, "Why?" He goes, "Because you've been down that road, Neo. You know where it goes, and you know you don't want to be there." Right, and it's great. It's great direction because the camera pans down this dark road and whatever, right, dark alley, and he gets his shit together, calms down, and gets back in the car. That is so similar to what happened. Is I looked. Um, I remember I used to just say, "Man, I'm gonna be." I said, "I'm 28. Am I gonna turn 33 with more options or fewer options?" And I didn't like the options I had. I wanted more options in my life, and so I started doing things to gain more options. Period.
Mm,
And for me that was enough. I mean, I just didn't. I hate feeling limited, right? And for me, if I was the age I am now, and I had the same I don't even I mean I don't want to say I don't care because that directly leads into the next part. But I'm not even that enamored with all the people who follow me. What I really like is that affords me the ability to live a life of freedom, and that's always been a high goal for me: is freedom, intellectual freedom, physical freedom. So I probably work out. In fact, I know I know the numbers. I know I work out way more than a guy average guy my age, and probably a bit more in general, independent of age. So that's so I can stay healthy and stay free and be the best I can be. That's always been important to me, and money is a really big important goal. Um like guys are always, we're always interested in assessing ourselves in a ranking, right? Because that's what dudes do. We sort things into a ranking system because it makes it easier. And I could never accept, okay, I can get myself into great shape easy. I can learn how to be a great conversationalist. I can work on my mind as well. So not only do I know how to talk, I have things to talk about. I can do that as well. And then there's the money part. I got to make sure my money's on point. That's the hard part for a lot of guys because money is just a son of a bitch to work on.
mhm,
Like, um, because it usually because to build your money up, it's usually a conglomeration of other parts of your life. Very rarely does one just stumble into a six-figure sales job with no sales experience. Okay, you got to go learn sales. You got to bust your ass, probably selling phones for 9.28 an hour with commission, that kind of thing. But once you get it together, and that's where I find. I mean, you work with guys directly. Um, you get a guy who comes to you who's 30 years old, and all he's been doing is taking minimum wage, driving Uber for the past 10 years. It's gonna be very hard because he has nothing of value to give to the world. So he's got to spend at least a year getting some value, and whatever that value is doesn't really matter. I mean, with the notable exception here is if you got a guy that like did some time, and those guys, now man, the internet is great. People love hearing prison stories. You can get a whole prison prison workout. But even that's an entrepreneurial mindset, like to be like, oh man, I went to jail. Here's how I overcame it and dealt my
mhm,
time. Not everybody can do that. So uh, that's that is that mentality I had of wanting to always be better and not being satisfied. Where I still have that mentality. I mean, now, granted, I'm not even gonna like exaggerate and say I'm getting up, killing it like I was when I have shit. No, because I don't have to. you know, this is look. I I effectively work a work day now. As weird as it sounds, I wake up, go do my gym stuff, practice some chess, practice some Spanish, start work right around 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. Work till about 6 p.m. That's good, and whatever I get done in there is what I get done. But that's because I for years was busting my ass to have the knowledge the connections, and really the stories and experiences to build a following,
Mm,
build something that people care about and like and are interested in. And that's what it all comes down to, man. That time again. Put the time.
mm. See, that's an amazing piece because I know a lot of people think they got to work like, they got to go to bed at 4 a.m. And get up at 10 a.m. Like, so for you, I love the idea. And you tell me if this sounds like you live this life too. It's like, it's more about what you get done in the hours you're working, like how
Well,
focused is it? Yeah.
well, like I was telling you, before we started the
Hmm.
podcast, that it's it's very easy to fall into I don't I can always do my work, right? It's very easy to let I think it's called
Yeah.
Parkinson's law take over where you have all this time effectively. So every
Yeah.
task fills all that time so you're always busy. It's the next level of discipline and challenge to go, okay, I'm a be in here from 11 to 5. Let's get a lot done and so I can go out
Mm,
and live my life.
mm.
Okay? That's challenging. That's the hard part.
So they probably like a lot of multitasking going on where it's like people can't get one thing done really well because they got a bunch of shit.
Well, I mean, I can only speak to my weaknesses and what I've had to overcome.
Sure.
For me, there's always distractions. For me, my distraction tends to be chess, and I have to control that, and put it out to the side and get work done. So I would just structure my chess like school now. That's how I structure.
Right.
So I'm not just sitting there idly playing, and I can get work done. And somebody else might have a different distraction. Maybe theirs is Netflix. Maybe it's chatting on Twitter. Maybe it's checking IG. Who knows? The point is that whatever your distraction is, you have to figure out a way to kind of box and compartmentalize it off. You don't want to get
Mm,
rid of it because that's part of you. I mean, I don't know
right.
what I would do if I didn't play chess. So instead, I set it aside. I almost make it a reward, but really, what I've done is I've turned it into a skill, and then I treat it like a skill set, a thing to do when I'm not working on my main method of earning money.
Mm. I love that, man. I want to change pace a little bit because you were raised by a single mother, man, and like I work with a lot of guys who didn't have a father figure, at least like around a whole lot,
Yeah.
and they see you, and this would be like inspiring for them. They listen to this podcast, and we're all about masculinity, right? And I think you embody it, obviously to a T. There, I know you're a humble guy, I can already tell, but the life you've built and like the discipline, right, the routine, the like the work you put in, like what can you tell to a guy who's like trying to embody a little more masculinity, a little more of that energy so he can, meet a woman that
If
that he can like lead, you know what I'm saying?
okay, so I'm gonna give you like the I'm gonna give you the hammer for the nail, and the whole hammer hits thinks everything is the nail, right? If I could, and I say it like that because this solution is gonna work for like 99.9% of guys, right? I'm assuming the general age range, whatever, it should work for most guys. But for those ones that don't, we'll talk about the general principle that uh behind that one. So take a fight. Train to fight for 2 years. And I'm not saying be a pro. I'm just saying to turn it into that's your new hobby. You are now training to fight. Whether it be MMA or boxing, it's got to be one or the other. Not no Brazilian jiu-jitsu, uh, not no wrestling. No, you want to go get punched in the face. Like if there is no chance for you to be punched in the face, then it don't count. All right, you got to be a chance for you to get embarrassed by getting knocked out. There we go, because that's going to introduce a new level of stress and training and emotional development. And as
Mm,
you learn to manage that, as you learn to keep pace, a bunch of other things in your life are going to change. Okay, that look like fighting. If you took the average guy who ain't never been in the ring, probably don't have a lot of athletic experience in general, and you go, okay, you go to find an amateur club and you start training, and you go in there. This is what I did. I told them I'm here to fight. I'm not here to work out. I'm not here to kill time. I'm here to devote. I didn't know how far I could go, what I could do, so I'm
mm-hmm.
here to devote my time to the craft. All right. So that that will handle just about everything. You ain't in shape, boy. You're not for long. You don't have confidence. Well, we'll see about that when you got to go, fight in front of a bunch of people. Because all spar, even because sparring, fighting is all done
Mm.
one on one, right? Everyone's looking at you. Uh, don't have emotional discipline. Well, you'll get it. Otherwise, somebody will whoop your ass. You don't have self control and discipline, you're gonna have to have it. Otherwise, you're gonna get hurt because you got to train. You got to get control of yourself. You got to train your emotions. You know, you think about this. And I think I still have I still have the instinct because I do something different instead of what the average person does. If
Hmm.
I flinched at you or something or like act like I was gonna hit you, most people are gonna jump back. I'm gonna I'm like because I've trained so much, I'm gonna slip forward and try to like get out the way while so I can,
Hey.
and that's just the reaction response built up over time. Do you know how different that makes you appear? You when danger comes, you try to get around it to
Mm.
be in a position to attack it as opposed to get away from it and not look at it. That's what most people do. All right. So that is why I recommend fighting. If you can't, for whatever reason, fight. And when I say you can't, you're gonna have to be like handicapped. I was
Right.
thinking about like all the situations are like decrepit. Like
Hmm.
the kind of guy that like if he's coming to you, and he like 70, you should be like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like you about to die. Go hang out with your family. Like, what do you need me for? Like, I can't help you. You are old, man. Like, so outside of those guys, so that's what I said. That should work for like 99% of guys, man. And and what's cool about that is there's no theory, there's no lecture, lesson, whatever. The outcome is what you're after
Mm.
through a process as well. That's outcome and process. And just by trying to achieve the correct outcome and putting yourself through the correct process, your whole mentality and mindset gets changed. Unlike weightlifting, you can't BS yourself about weightlifting or numbers. No, we know real fast if you have been training or not,
Mm.
whether it be because you get hurt easy or your cardio isn't there or mentally you're not, you still,
Hmm.
you know fighting reveals every man's weakness,
Mm.
like, and then it forces you to fight through it. So that's why I would recommend a guy spend at least, I say, 2 years training amateur, and that is a very reasonable commitment. Like, think, I mean, people devote effing their entire effing free time to a Netflix series, or going out, making time to pick up women or try to going out. And I think about, if there was one thing I could go back and do younger, I would have put so much more time into everything that was not related to chasing girls. like
Yeah.
like if I could somehow like go back in the time ship and talk to like 24-year-old me, I would be like, just be celibate till you're 30, and then because it wastes a lot of time, man, and it keeps you from doing what is going to allow you to ultimately have, is whatever choice and women you want.
That's an interesting take right there. Like, just, I mean, obviously, I preach kind of the same thing, right? It's like, stop chasing girls, focus on your purpose. Like, I'm all on that too. It's super funny though that you're like, man, if you would have just, when you were younger, I mean, obviously, it's good to have experiences, right? A lot of them
Yeah,
fuck you up. Yeah.
the whole idea. What I say to a lot of people, I say that the whole idea behind learning, you don't want to learn everything the hard way, right? Because you might not survive long enough to reap the
Yeah.
benefit of the lesson. So let's see what you can learn vicariously. There's a lot of
Hmm.
things you can and should learn vicariously. For example, like I ain't gotta learn I shouldn't kill a guy. Like,
Yeah.
because you make that mistake once, that's it.
It's on
I
your
mean,
conscience forever.
well, even still, I mean, you gonna go to jail for the rest of your life.
Right. Right.
So, but that's an extreme example. We can use something even smaller. Like, you ain't gotta learn not to have unprotected sex with like chicks
Mm-hmm.
you meet in the club. Like that
Mm-hmm.
probably like that's not something you should learn by firsthand experience, because the outcome is going to be so disproportionately bad and punish you. You're not going to get a second. I mean, you might get a second chance, probably not. Between child support and you thinking about killing her because she crazy, you ain't gonna make, you're done.
Yeah. That's what I always say too. Like, you don't have to. I've said this in the corporate world too. Like when I remember I always felt this way. Like, you don't have to experience something to learn, like, not to do something. But there's a lot of people that would be like, no, 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 no. Like, like I learned by only experience. And I'm like,
And
that's
I'm
kind of,
like, look, man, I'm at the point, overcoming a lot of nonsense. It makes you very. It does too. It's like instead of like a bell curve, uh, it splits it into two valleys in the middle. I have zero tolerance for most average mentalities and behavior. I can't
mhm.
deal with it.
Yeah.
But if somebody but in that split, I'm really patient and I'm really not patient, and it just depends, right? If I got a guy who's like, he's like 22, and 20, your early 20s are an interesting age because you think you've been alive long and you're an adult and know shit, but you don't, you quite like you're the easiest person to fleece at this point. You think you know, but you don't know a thing. Okay, and you tell me you got to learn everything by experience. I'm gonna I'm going to like probably be a little patient with you because I understand where you're at.
Yeah.
Now if you like 30 something, I'm gonna probably hear that once and that's it.
Yeah.
Because it's the mere fact that you've gotten this far, because we used to have Darwinism, right? Technology's taking care of a lot of that, but we used to have very real, permanent, lasting, irreversible consequences to stupidity, and now we don't, right? So if you but so the, but it shows up in other ways, right? And you got to look at where a person is in their life and if they're willing to listen. If a guy says, I got to learn everything by experience, and you explain why that's a bad idea, if he gives kickback, the older guys, the less likely I would be to entertain that. Like,
Hmm.
like let's put it like this. I had a guy who I guess, I mean, his whole situation was like he was living at home and had a trash degree because it was easy to get, and smoked a lot of weed and thought he was gonna be a competitive video gamer, and always went out and tried to like pick up girls, but surprise, surprise, even though he played guitar, the girls didn't want anything to do with him, whatever. The advice I gave him was to fight, but that was not the first piece of advice I gave him. I gave him a few other things. I said, put the weed down. Don't do the video games. Instead, make
Hmm.
make take your training a little more seriously that you're already doing at the gym. Uh, Move out of your mother's house immediately. He took that to mean moving to his cousin's house, and I'm like, well, not his cousin's house, but like his aunt, and
Mm.
so another parent. And so when he asked me again, I said, look, man, I'll 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 give you a counsel, but it's gonna be like 5 times more because you're not wasting my time.
Hmm.
you know,
Right.
he ain't like that. So I never heard from him. I hope he's doing okay. But the
Mm.
thing is, like, some people just like they're hoping that you're gonna co-sign the easy answer. They're hoping that you're gonna tell them something that's like super
Yeah.
profound. And the reality is, man, most of this shit is not profound. Don't learn things the hard like if you can, don't learn most things the hard way. I'm not
Mm.
even gonna say there's some like yeah, there's some things you're gonna have to figure out. Like, you're gonna have to figure out how to deal with getting your heart broken. Like that's just how it's
Hmm.
gonna come. And hopefully you figure that out when you're relatively young and you ain't gotta navigate like going to work and shit, right? So those are things you have to figure that out on your own. You probably gotta figure out how to manage like you probably got to figure out personal finance almost by definition on your own.
Right.
You gotta, but like a lot of this stuff, man, if somebody, no matter what, tells you who is in a position of success that, or at least that you like that you don't have, and they give you a piece of info, you got to be like, yo, what's going on? Why not? What is wrong? Um, I can't figure it out a lot of times, but no, I mean I do know people are very committed. They're more committed to their story. They want to be able to succeed without getting a different story. They want
Mm,
the, but no, you, whatever you're doing now and have been is clearly not working
right.
by definition of you
Yeah.
being here with me, right?
Right.
Clearly it's not working. So let's discard what you're doing, and that takes. I think people can even, I mean, you deal with this a lot. I mean, I think people will pay for coaching, they'll pay for this, but well, that's the hard step. Like that's that like the real thing. They could like they wouldn't need to pay for coaching if they could do that one thing. They could go, what I'm doing isn't working. Let me do something
Right.
different, right?
Self-assessment.
Yes, exactly. Accurate self-assessment. So instead, they come to a guy like you, and I hopefully you get them to that point of self-assessment. That's the goal. That's the plan. Because no matter, you could tell somebody all day you are an asshole, right? But until they look in the mirror and go, you know what? I'm an asshole. Like they won't do anything about it. you
Yeah.
know?
They have to realize it themselves. Like that's like a big thing about the work I do is like you can see me in my bio. It's like I'm trying to help these guys realize their own truths because like it comes from an ego perspective. If I'm going to be like, you got to do this and that, under my sort of vision for what I see for you, whereas like that won't work. It's like I have to find a way to get you to see like your own truth. So it's like this methodical conversation, introducing some spirituality to their life, right? And
Yeah.
but you're totally right. It's like they have to realize it themselves. And I've noticed with I had to fire clients, I've had to like tell people like I can't work with you. You're not gonna
You're
put
right.
in the
Like
work.
there really comes a point
Mm-hmm.
where you look at somebody's situation, you go, look, bro, I can't do shit for you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be able to, but you gotta
Yeah.
understand, maybe stop
Right.
smoking crack for 6 months and come see me. Like that kind of thing.
That's actually like a good thing to do is give them something, right, that they can show you, hey, I'm disciplined enough, like that other guy you're talking about, like you're like, hey, well, like go take the gym seriously, do this and this, and then if you do that, we can maybe, we
Then
could
when you
talk.
get tired,
Yeah.
it's still gonna cost you 5 extra more time, but a lot. But now on top. There is a lesson you shouldn't have to learn the hard way, but most people don't do that. They don't. They'll keep telling somebody the same shit. Uh, because that's the really cool thing too. Is like when if you're doing a good job and you're confident in your work and getting good
Mm-hmm.
results, you don't have to take on scrub clients, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
You can go, I can't do anything for you, or you're gonna be too much of a headache, that kind of thing. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Uh, because a lot of these guys, I'm not as hopeful about the future of men as maybe some people. I'm not as depressed about it either. I think what I have is a very, well, not very. I have an assessment based on a large sample size, and I think the general conclusion is that most guys are going to, whether it's by force or by selection, they're going to be forced to kind of settle in their life. And when I say by force, and everyone goes, "Oh man, we always got a choice." Sure, we always have a choice, but you have to evaluate the system with which within which you can make the choice. Like it's not realistic for me to tell somebody, "Oh man, if you want this, you gotta go to this country." Like man, for whatever reason, maybe he can't get there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he can't, maybe he can't work remotely, that kind of thing. I don't know, but that's just the plight of the modern world, and I think ultimately men have to figure out how to navigate it in their own personal way. But the first step is self control, is take or rather taking control of themselves.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially the embodiment of masculinity, right? And like that's something I talk a lot about. And we've talked about a little bit. It's like, and I kind of want to ask you, like, for someone who's been through struggle, and we've talked about like, maybe you wouldn't put yourself in that same struggle. It's like this like weird thing, right? It's like I wouldn't do it again, but like the skills it brought me. So maybe you got some dude who's he just had a cozy life. He hasn't really had a lot of someone to kind of push him around, even punch him in the face, maybe, right? Like, so you're saying like you bring on fighting in your life. Is there like maybe some other tips or anything like that for?
I mean, you gotta go do something difficult.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
imagine if you get to the age of 20, which is like right when most guys are even thinking about moving out, and that's if they move out. You get to the age of 20 and you haven't played a sport. You were an okay student. You spent most of your time fucking playing video games, man. Like that's what your thing was. Video games and probably pot. Like that's where we at now. Like Netflix. You're not equipped. You don't have now. If you're dealing with a guy that played a sport, that's different. But most guys don't play sports, right? Sports are great still, and it ain't got to
yeah,
be just boxing. It's just that's believe it or not, the
yeah.
easiest one to get into. Uh, when you're not in school anymore. I mean, I guess you could go learn how to play in a pickup league, but the guys who are playing in a pickup league are so far ahead of you, and it's just but like it's weird. Pickup basketball is this weird kind of hobby. Like everyone who's good at who plays it, they're like good, but no, but the whole idea is you got to find a way to really introduce something hard into your life in a safe manner. If you're not gonna fight. I mean, I don't know, go to the military or to the Marines, I guess.
Right.
Like no matter what, like this is the thing. There is no way around facing something difficult to make you better. It's
Hmm.
just how do you want to do it? And there aren't many things left. Fighting, the Marine Corps,
Yeah.
and notice I'm not listing purely mental disciplines. Like sure, you can go get your electrical engineering degree. That is mentally challenging. You will have not developed any social ability, and you will not have developed any physical ability. Meanwhile, learning how to, the ability to march freaking 50 miles on no sleep. Yeah, you're probably gonna figure out a little bit about your emotional toughness. You might not learn anything in terms of intellectually, but at least we're hitting two areas. And then they train you in so much in the Marines either way. Uh, but you get the idea that I'm leaning towards. There has to be something to push the because here's the reality. Most of us ain't smart enough to make it to make a real dent in this world. We ain't smart. I mean, computers are taking over everything
Hmm.
now. It is going to be who has the ability to communicate, and that's a really important skill.
Mm.
Can you keep yourself healthy enough to even enjoy this world, man? 80% of people in the United States are overweight or obese, and they ain't all built like me. When people go, "Oh, BMI is a terrible metric," I'm like, bro. I always say one, most of them ain't built like me. Two, how many people have you met that were obviously overweight, but the BMI came back like normal? Like, no, it works for most people.
Right.
Cut the shit, you know.
Yeah.
So like when we see that like literally 4 out of 5 people, man, are out of shape, and the average income is well, not we won't even go on the average income because I actually don't like that metric. We'll go on another metric, which is I put together an article about this. Something like 60%. It wasn't that high. It was 50-ish% of Americans couldn't survive $1,000 emergency. Like if you suddenly need $1,000 for something, that's sickening
Yeah,
to me.
man.
And we're the richest. Look, man, we got a great cost of living relative to how we live. There ain't no reason for any of this. And there are lots of things that contribute to this lack, but one of the things we can absolutely do something about is how we live in the world, how we approach it, how we deal with it. And
Mm.
that only we don't have hardship, and I'm sure that is um not sure I know that is like a
Hmm.
big a big contributors. So go fight, join the police.
Yeah.
What else can you do? I mean, look, I'd even look. I mean, maybe I'm biased. I like running a little bit. Go run distance. You know, if you turn into
Yeah.
a freaking marathoner,
It
that's hard.
is.
Uh,
Yeah.
let's not pretend that that's not difficult. It ain't getting in the face hard. It ain't mucking through the rain and cold and being, and training that hard, but that's hard. That forces you to dig deep and realize that most of the problems in the world aren't real problems. I
Mm,
think that's one of the best things that the fighting ends up teaching you. Most of these things, you can deal with it. It ain't gonna kill you.
hmm.
You just persevere and get through it. No one has that. People think
Yeah.
you know, the average kid is spending their time coming up on screens, playing video games, not really socially interacting because you can just DM people now, and
Hmm.
it's a weird world. You have to go out of your way to find these difficult challenges.
Yeah, I think that's like the moral of that point. It's like, because if you didn't like, you just weren't skilled enough at a certain sport to play past high school, and I think even playing in high school, you go through a lot of difficulty
Yes.
at that young age. I mean, you definitely can, right? Like whether you're wrestling or playing, like I played like soccer and baseball and basketball. I was pretty like mainstream sport kind of guy, but I loved. I mean, some of those workouts, I still remember to this day. I was like, damn, like.
Oh, dude, I still remember the first. It was like one of the first 2-a-day football practices in high school, and I'm running the sprints, and I had never pushed myself this hard, and I cramped up. I couldn't. I was bad cramping the whole day. I had to go back to practice the next day though. You learn a lot about yourself making it through these situations.
Yeah. So I
Little,
think
yeah.
yeah, it's super important, man. It's super important. Like whatever you're gonna do, find something that's gonna push the boundaries. And usually, what they say is like at the beginning, you need someone to like help you find that like clips and
Oh,
often.
for sure.
Yeah, and like I think even like me, like right now, even though I've been through some of the craziest workouts in my life, like I would still like to go to the gym with someone else, right? Because I know that person, like we're gonna hold each other accountable. Like, we're gonna make sure we even go harder than we would if you're by yourself. But that kind of thing, like, if maybe maybe you did like I didn't do Greek life, I was a college athlete. It's like I think Greek life
Yeah.
is just this fascinating thing. Is like I like a lot of people that went through it. But it obviously compared to like some different journeys, it does introduce a lot of interesting social
Oh, sure.
dynamics.
Look, man. Look, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
yeah, social dynamics. If you learn how to deal, mm, I find that a lot of people want a guarantee. Okay,
Hmm.
here is the problem with two of the three areas that people need to develop. Right, mentally. There are guarantees. I mean, that's I think this is why you get a lot of really smart guys going to not just for the financial benefits, but for the guarantee. There's a guarantee way to work out a program or to build something
Hmm.
or to develop an algorithm. These are guarantees. When you get into the physical realm, not so much. At least not very measurable in terms. At least not immediate. Right? It's more delayed. Like here's the input, here's the output. Work for a year, then you see the change. It's gradual. People aren't comfortable with that, so there's that gradualness. It's not an instant. Do this, get that. The social area is not only that, or rather, it's not as severe, but now you're dealing with a balance of probabilities. I say this thing and it should make 8 people laugh. One person won't care, but that one person might freak the hell out. And now you got to deal with that and navigate that. And it's like, well, I thought this was going to work, but it made this person, but it worked in other people, so it works 80% of the time. These things are not guaranteed, and and chasing guarantees is almost a guarantee to end up with an unhappy life.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Chasing guarantees. There's something kind of just that doesn't push you, right? It doesn't like offer you that obstacles. I really like that. And that actually kind of, I want to talk to you about this red pill, blue pill. Like I watched your video on YouTube and I was like, damn, like this content, like that was in 2019, like in March, I think. But but that content you wouldn't even know would have been huge for 2020, 2021, right? Like, because the advice is like obviously how to operate in a world where you're seeing things from the red pill, right, versus whatever. So
Yeah.
I actually want to form a question out of that, a couple different questions, but the first one would be like, how do you deal with like, so you basically you swallowed the pill, right, the red pill, and
Yeah.
you're one of my clients or something, right, and you're taking this stuff in. How do you like still maintain like, hey, like it's really hard, right? Like you feel like you know things, and you do know things, right? Like you see truths that other people don't see, right? It's like this
Right.
weird thing. How do you make sure you're still being respectful? And I mean, obviously, part of it's just being a good friend, right? But like, how do you manage all this?
Well, you have to. So the biggest problem is that people think that because they know a thing, they gotta tell people they know the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I say is, stop doing that and instead start.
I told you so.
Well, more importantly, start
Right.
doing something with your knowledge. Right? There's this, and we all fall into this trap. Let's say you find out. We'll use a concept. We'll say you find out about hypergamy. You go, okay. All women want to just want a guy that's better. So she's gonna leave you, dude, and it's crazy, and you should know this. And you just say that over and over again, and people just get tired of hearing it. Whether you're right or wrong, it doesn't matter because usually these things come out with a bit of vitriol because it's discovered. No one happy discovers the red pill, right? So it usually is delivered with a bit of vitriol. When the reality is, here's a better way to deal with it. Okay, so you know this. Why don't you just make yourself into the best guy you can be, right? Kevin Samuels has a great quote that I've really taken to heart, and it goes, "Her hypergamy can't outpace my ambition." That is speaking. That is a quote that sums up doing versus
Mm,
pontificating. Just gonna sit there and talk about it. Like, no.
mm-hmm.
And if you start living your life that way, where you take advantage of this information and you use it. And you know people, part of this is experience, right? You know that if you tell somebody something, they ain't really going to hear it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't wake somebody up. They gotta wake themselves up.
Yeah.
And you just can be there to console and help because they're really your friends. Then you start to live a happier life. But I think a lot of the unhappiness, a lot of the difficulty comes from guys thinking that because they know something, they have to tell everybody else about it. It's just like kind of co-signing, whoever hears me is gonna like sign on it. I'm guilty of doing it. I did it when I first learned this stuff. So I know that trend, but I also know that the benefit, or rather, that the best way to deal with it, but I would have got a lot more out of it if I had just executed based on the ideas instead of just talking about them.
Mm. And that's what hit home for me because we had a lot of like just tumultuous information, the media, and I try to, I know I saw you, like you try to stay away from it. I don't know if it's still to this day you're staying away from it,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah, man.
yeah,
Because so much of this stuff is just it's
toxic, man.
people aren't coming to the conversation with good intentions, with the best intentions. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, and I don't have the time or the energy to kind
Mm-hmm.
of deal with and navigate that. So I'm not going to, you know.
Exactly.
That's a lot of
Yeah.
like, what do I win? What do I gain out of it? Like every hour in your day should have some value. You should start getting to a point where you ask yourself,
Mm-hmm.
how does this benefit me? What
Mm-hmm.
do I get out of it? And if you can't answer that, you're probably wasting time.
Yeah.
Because can't is won't, right?
Yep.
That means you see a solution, you got the answer, you're like, I don't like that, or you're just trying to avoid that question.
Mm-hmm.
Once you go, okay, what do I get out of this argument? You really stop having them, and that's why I think that's one of the reasons why my social media does so well is because I just don't bring that energy, man. And
Mm.
and anyone who has it, I am very quick to I'm not as quick as I guess I could be or should be. But I don't dig it, man. It's not good.
Yeah, there's definitely an energy about it that's just like not pleasant. It's like whether it's like the hyped up red pill energy that you talk about, or like the political like wokeness, like or I guess the opposite where you think you know everything, right? It's an energy of itself that's just not pleasant.
Yeah. So
So
I just try to not, engage in it. But to the idea though, one of the reasons why I'm able to do that is because I uh have more or less have figured out that I can't change people. If a person wants to change, they'll find me, they'll talk about it, or they won't and they'll do it on their own. But like,
yeah,
it's not a big deal for me.
yeah. That's good, man. Yeah, I think when it comes to like the friendships piece and just like when you start to embody this information, it's like shut the hell up, right? Just use that information, execute, take action on it, but don't like impose on everyone else. That's just a waste of time. It's like, I mean, if they come to you and they're really genuinely open and like I want to know how you're doing that or whatever,
Yeah.
that's maybe a good time. But otherwise, it's like it's companionship, it's friendship, like let that value be what it is. Don't try to compromise that friendship for wanting,
Right, exactly. Like because at the end of the day, like that's not Aaron Clary always says, man, and I say it too. People are the most important thing.
Yeah,
When you start
yeah,
each relationship has a cost and a value, and the
mm,
idea is that the value exceeds the cost. When you start making it about something that has nothing to do with your friendship, then you increase the cost, and pretty soon the cost is going to exceed the value. And the
mm-hmm,
person is going to go, I'm going to now distance myself. So, what did you win? You lost somebody that was actually on your team and your friend. For what? So you could feel right.
mm-hmm,
And I don't feel that. Or you miss
yeah,
out on, or one of the big things I'm learning being on social media and being visible is you miss out on a lot of potential great relationships
yeah,
because this is your identity. So this shuts you down from other people who they really ain't about that. How important is this? This is one of the things that I try to express. I just wrote a newsletter on this, and I talk about it constantly. Like how like what is the value of your opinion? Like really put a value on it because that is what you need to be willing to walk away from our losing opportunity cost for you to express it. And people have a really hard time with that idea because it sounds like I'm telling them don't have an opinion. I'm not saying that. Whatever
mm-hmm,
first have your opinions. What I'm talking about, when you voice them, consider what it does.
yeah,
And once you consider what it does, consider if you're willing to pay that price, not just in real but opportunity cost. One thing I figured out real early in this social media game, almost by accident, is that opportunity cost is worth a lot more than real cost. I would I'll lose people knowing that I'm opening myself up to a new audience in the future.
mm,
That's not even a question because this thing we have, Twitter. What did you say? Twitter. And that's one of many. But this thing we have is connected to like 390 million people, many of which are in incredible positions of society, and they just
mm-hmm,
don't care. So you got to think: is this opinion? It's one of the reasons. This is one of the big reasons. Well, in general, I don't want to infect my mind with politics, but
yeah,
I don't talk about politics. What do I gain? Well, what do I get? Let's say I have an opinion. I want to put out what I think about the president.
right,
I want to talk about who I'm voting for. What do I gain by putting something in my bio? What do I gain by showing my support? Hey, look, man, that's what we used to. I'm old enough to remember what we used to understand that talking about politics and mixed company in public was bad form. We used to have that rule because we understood. Maybe it wasn't that aspect. Maybe it was because of the adversarial nature of the
mm,
topic. But there certainly has to be part of it. If I mention that I'm XYZ or I think ABC, then now for absolutely nothing, I have ruined a potential relationship. And some people might argue, oh, but you're getting rid of people who think differently. Yeah, sure. But if that was the point of contention, but everything else would have been all good, and all you had to do was shut the fuck up, like life be all good, man. you know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into it, but TLDR, man, think about the value of your opinions, and more importantly, think about the value, or more specifically, think about the value of expressing your opinion to company you're not aware of, or if you know that they ain't gonna like it,
Hmm.
get out of it. You get to feel honest. I'm not holding my tongue. All that kind of things. Like, great, good for you. I'm gonna hold my tongue and I'm gonna make some more money while you be broken opinionated. There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, man. That's just the truth. Like it definitely you gotta hold your tongue, right, at times and just be
And
disciplined.
it's a
Yeah.
maturity thing, really,
Yeah.
because a lot of younger people don't get this.
Hmm.
They think that there is something magical about being able to say whatever you want. And I'm like, well, first off, you can't really. And maybe the idea is so natural to me because where I came from, you couldn't do that, right? Somebody might whoop your ass, so you had to be like real.
Yeah.
You had to be aware of what was going to come out of your mouth.
I love that theory where it's like, yeah, I mean, like you used to not be able to just talk shit. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to say it to someone's
Right.
face.
Exactly. And I think, based on what I know, and let me try and like, I figure I got my first smartphone right before I moved to LA, so that would have been 2009, but they were already out for a little while. So go 2008, I graduated high school in '03. So that means somebody who is, wow, 6 or more years younger than me might not have an experience with smartphones in high school, and someone who is 10 or more years younger, they just grew up,
Yep.
everything was social media. So if you're
Hmm.
younger than 25, well, 26, if you're young, I'm 36, if you're younger than 36, then this is a foreign concept.
Yeah.
Look, I had somebody, I kid you not, I'm not old by anyone's definition, except
No.
maybe like I 12 year, and even then nobody like look at me like an old man. But I had somebody, I said I made a tweet about this. I said, I'm old enough to remember when we didn't talk about politics and religion in mixed company. And somebody wrote like,
Hmm.
wow, man, how old are you? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what? Chris Rock made a joke about this, man. Like in his comedy skit back in, I think it was Bringing the Pain or something like that. But point is, man, times change. People are not. Well, one of those cons. Technology has a lot of pros, but one of those cons, along with it being a lot
Yeah.
easier, is that it's removed a lot of the natural consequences for actions that we used to temper.
Mm, yeah, man, that's the truth. I feel like I remember when I was a kid. I'm 27, but I do remember when I was a kid. Like I think we would
Oh,
go.
so you were right on the cusp. So
I
you
know.
realistically, so what? 27. I'm 36. Or you? What are you? 96 or
No, no,
94?
93, 90, well, yeah, 93,
Okay,
93.
93. Oh,
Yeah.
so your birthday hasn't passed yet.
No, well, yeah, actually, shit, my birthday's coming up in
Yeah. So all right,
5 days.
because I was like, my math is pretty good. All right. So it's okay. So you won 93. So that means 93. So that means when you were just coming to school, like we'll say like first grade. Yeah, I was in high school, and you shouldn't have been on social media. But we didn't have. We were using AIM
Right.
Instant Messenger in high school. Right? I don't even know if you know what that is.
Oh, I
but
know. I was using AIM. I was on AOL.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that was how you
that
shot game with girls.
yeah, that stuck around for a little while, but this new thing, that means by the time you got the high school, so what are you, class of oh
2012.
2012? No kidding. Oh, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means class of 2012. Put that like I remember my life in 2012. I was 28, right? So that's an interesting, right? I
It's
think
crazy.
IG and Twitter had just gotten started and everything, or no, they had not just got started. They were around for because I've had my account since 2012. So all right,
Well, 2012 was Facebook. I think Instagram. I think Instagram came around right on Snapchat. Like it was like Snapchat was. I think we had Snapchat
right,
in high school maybe, but
yeah. So
no, I mean,
there's all kinds of cool, crazy things. but the whole point of this
Yeah.
is that there is a very big like there are people who are adults now and well this is going to sound weird because it's coming from me spoken to you, but just imagine you're 36. There are people who are adults now who never ever use the phone with cords or wires into the wall or anything, or wires,
Hmm.
uh, they're a landline. What the
Yeah.
hell? Like, never seen. Who don't know a world without wireless internet? Yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
you telling me you had to have a wire? Yeah, man, you can still use it. No kidding. That's what that's for. Yes, that's what that's for. Right. I had one of my students. I made it. I showed. I said, "Have you ever even seen a VCR?" Or they're like, "Do you know what a VCR is?" And she said, "Yeah, I've seen one, but like." We don't have it. I was like, oh yeah, an antique shop, right? But it's the world has changed so quickly and has removed a lot of, and this is one of the things I always talk about, and this is relevant to everything we've been discussing, is that there used to be a rite of passage and a difficult thing you had to do if you even wanted to talk to a girl. You had to walk up to her, you had to ask her for her phone number. You didn't get to slide in the DMs, right? You couldn't even text. I mean, because there was texting for a while, but you still needed to get the phone number. So all that is you couldn't do it. Okay. Then you had to call. You probably had to talk to her father, and you had to be nice to that guy. You had to deal with that, and you had to talk to him. And then if you wanted to go on a date, you probably had to go. I don't even know if you pick her up, maybe, but probably not. So that's three levels of exposed communication where you have to get what you want.
Hmm.
You have to appease the guardians. You have to face your fears and deal with your courage. Right now, sliding the DM. You're probably I would guess you're probably a weirdo if you ask for a girl's phone number now. Like because now it's just like, oh, hit me on IG, hit me on Facebook, whatever, right? All those things is
The
weird.
social proof. The
Yeah.
social proof. Everyone wants social proof now. It's like, I mean, it's that's a good benefit to have for a lot of reasons. It's like, who are you? Like you're not some
Oh
creep.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Like
like,
how often did that happen before? How often were creeps just showing up clean girls randomly? Like no, it's one
yeah,
of those things. It's not a real threat.
right, right, right. Well, I have like one more like legitimate, I guess, and I have like a fun thing I want to ask you in a minute, but around this kind of topic, like dating in your 20s, and I'm in Chicagoland area. I
Oh
spent a
yeah,
lot of time in Chicago.
nice
Yeah,
city. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah. I like Chicago. And dating, like a lot of my guy friends, like or maybe the ones that are like my clients in the group, dated. Like there's just, I'm sure you've probably noticed, like there's just, I mean, especially right now and what we've seen the past couple of years is just like a lot of social justice warrior type girls. You look at their Instagram bios, they got all this stuff going on. Like, they can be a lot of girls that are really tough to date, like especially if you're a masculine guy, right? Like you've probably seen out there these young girls, like they
Yeah.
they want a soft guy
Well,
sometimes.
you know what's funny, man? Because it's not like I'm completely cut off by virtue of.
Right.
I mean, like I'm not like, out there like chasing or interested, but like,
Totally.
nah, but by virtue of my very unique life,
Yep.
I'm in fairly regular contact with girls in the early 20s range. So it's not like I'm not like unaware of what's cracking, but I'm curious what the question will be.
No, I know. It's just like since I'm in the space, I'm so hypersensitive to it. So, but no, I mean, I guess the question is like, I don't know if you've dated any women like this, or you have experience, or you have advice for guys who like are trying to like still live this high value like masculine lifestyle, but they're surrounded by women who I personally met them. I know guys have met them that like are trying to bring them down a notch, or
Man, okay, look, here's the thing, right? And this is where you got to decide how important it is to you,
mhm,
because first my experience, I've been in a relationship now. Shit, I mean, put it in perspective. I didn't even have a Tinder, not because I'm against Tinder, but it came
mhm.
out after I was in my relationship. Uh, so it's been like, what is it, 2021? Yeah, okay, yeah, like 9 years. Okay.
Nice, man.
So yeah, it's just a good time, man. I'm happy, find somebody. You gotta find somebody who deals with your shit. You deal with theirs, and on top of that, like I tell her all the time, I like her, and and that's way more important than loving her because I have to like live
I
with
love
them
that.
and I want to go do stuff. And it's a lot easier when you like them. Like it should be like a friend you're attracted to. That's what you ideally want. And that's kind of how like I look at my girl. So it's a good time. As far as like uh what to do in that situation, you got to decide how important it is to you because what you're likely gonna have to do in this world now is if you don't want to deal with that and what comes on with it, there are still pockets in the United States where that ain't cracking,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of those are you go to your red cities. As weird as that
Hmm.
sounds. Now, granted, you get a different kind of zealotry, but like if you have to choose which con you want to deal with, then
Right.
you certainly have a much smaller chance of encountering it in Nashville, Tennessee, than you do in San Francisco, California.
Yeah.
That's just that's just the reality.
Yeah.
So, but for a lot of guys, that's going to be like, okay, how important is it to me? Like I think about what I would do if I was single today, and I probably wouldn't live here, but that's just because well, no, I'd still live here because I'm helping my mom with stuff, and she's getting there. So at the
Mm.
very least, I'd hold a residence here. But one of the things that I do is we have, I mean, between Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, I would just be a skis on there, right? And but what I mean is like I'm looking fine, looking see, and then find a reason to go visit, check out the city, and go. So you're gonna have to spend money. That's why I said you got to decide how important it is to you, because the reality is in this day and age, at least in the United
Hmm.
States, for sure. If look, man, if you think like me, but you live in freaking like it's a good example, but you live in like Seattle, you probably gonna have to move, man. Like
I know, man.
that's just the truth. And there's nothing uh wrong with that. But like you you gotta but you gotta decide. I mean, how important is it? How important is it, So if it is important to you, yeah, don't be afraid to move. Don't be afraid and don't be afraid to move because of that.
Right.
At the very least, because she might move for you. Who knows, right? But that's if it's really important. If you just want to casually date, then it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Like it really doesn't matter if you just want to casually date. You avoid the
Right.
extremes, and because the extremes will I've learned people approach this shit the way like gang members do when you're in the wrong area, and they come up to you and be like, yo, where you from, cuz? Like, you sure? You lying to me? Where your people stay? That kind of thing. That's how people approach like voting. They're like, yo, who you vote for? You sure, dog? Don't lie to me. Like, it's that kind of thing. Now that any person who brings that up in the first conversation,
Yeah.
really everyone on a date is problematic, right?
Yeah.
But uh they're not all in that extreme, and you certainly put the numbers in your favor if you move to places where more people think like you, however you think. And
Yeah.
that is the short answer. That I mean that's not even a short answer. That is the answer.
Yeah. And
All
there's just no getting around it.
Or the other solution is play the law of large numbers and you move to the biggest city you can, which right now, what, New York City, LA, Chicago, Philly, basically the top tens. Go there. That's a pretty because there's so many people there
Yeah.
uh, that you have a good chance of doing it or of meeting people different. But cities tend to lean a certain way, and with that comes a certain mindset. So ultimately, yeah, you're just gonna have to make sure that you're. This is why I don't remember who said it, but until you're making a certain amount of money, a guy, you probably shouldn't really be thinking about dating.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
and the reason why is because you're just not going to be able to leverage your position. And this is a perfect example of of that concept. If you can't um if you can't go where you want to go, right? And or rather, if let's pretend like your perfect match is 2,000 miles away, but y'all follow each other on the gram and Facebook, always interacting. What do you want to do? How you gonna facilitate that? Like that's the one. That's the one for you. Hypothetically, let's just say that. But you are tied down, or you can't afford to fly out. Because I'm not even saying make the big commitment, but you get a ticket across the country. What are we talking? You book it in advance, main cabin. You ain't got to go all balling. Like at most $500 round trip. And the first few times you go, you get a hotel, but then you go, y'all like each other enough. But that requires means. When you don't have
Yep.
the means, you are limited,
Yeah.
and you have to force what reality imposes upon you, as opposed to imposing your will upon on reality. So
That's facts. Yeah, I guess like the combination of, I mean, you just gotta move, and you gotta have the means like to do any of this stuff. Like
yeah,
have yeah.
that's that. Because you probably don't have this hang up just by virtue of the era you kind of grew up in, and I would imagine even younger has it even less. But right now, um, there are guys, my age is like, well, I gotta meet somebody at the local bar. I gotta meet somebody doing a local activity, and I'm like, yeah, that worked. Uh, does that still work? Sure, but now now you have to hope. Now you're playing luck, right? You're hoping that they have similar values, etc. Meanwhile, if you can we live in a beautiful age. You pick and choose literally around the world, man, and so there's no real local market anymore. It's
Yeah.
all it is global, and the players that can move and push shake, take it globally. So that's where I think a lot of guys are gonna have their real happiness at is playing on the global market.
That's true, man. I like that a lot. I got just like one like kind of funny question here for you.
Okay.
Any interest in knocking out one of these YouTubers?
Oh man, look, if they came to me and said, we'll give you what good boy make. If you'll make if they said you'll make like 750,000 fight, right? Okay, now it's different. Yeah, I'll go put myself through 8 weeks of camp. For what's likely going to result in a net gain of like 100 to 200,000 followers, and 3 times the amount of money. Sure, I do it. But other than that, but that's because of the
Right.
opportunity. I personally think what they're doing to the sport right now is what the sport needs,
Wow.
because
Awesome.
here's the thing: decentralization, the idea of there not
Mm-hmm.
being the network that handles it, but rather the individual and his following.
Right.
Boxing's kind of always been that model anyway. You can't survive building your local record if you can't sell tickets. You're into being fed to somebody's B side and hope you're good enough, unless you come from local
Mm-hmm.
tournaments, which you would be good enough. All right. All these guys did was take their following and go, watch me fight.
Yeah.
And that pisses a lot of people off because they didn't they didn't face reality. I always understood how money is made in boxing. I knew it had nothing, not nothing, but I knew it had very little to do with my skill, and more about how much I sold. Any fighter that's ever got to sell tickets for his own show figures that out,
Right.
right? And so I'm looking, I'm like, these guys are fucking brilliant. That's all. I mean, all it is
I know, man.
but look, who cares if they become like they get a legit title shot? Or who cares because all they're look, it's not like hardcore. Well, that's the thing. They're big enough to where they're bigger than boxing, right? So, but they're not boxers on the outside, and they're coming in. So what they're doing, they're bringing a whole new, fresh set of eyes and interest in the sport. Now, if these guys have any kind of intelligence and leverage, the new guys come. If you're already in a contract, you can't do shit about it. But if these new guys coming up, my contract, for example, when I signed it was for 5 years. If I was signing right now today, remember I signed my contract in wow 2014, right? So a full 7 years ago, okay. or 2015, 6 years ago. Point is, a while ago, things changed a lot in sports.
Yeah.
I would be like, no, we're gonna make sure at the very least I have the option to put my own shit on, and I can take a percentage of the cut, because now everyone has the technology, right, to do this on their own if they wanted to. If a guy like me decided, let's say I woke up one day and was like, you know what I want to do? I want to make $100,000. Um, what I would do is I'd go and be like, uh, come watch me fight, whatever. Here's a link. Buy this
Yep.
for $20. And
Yep.
even if I converted 1% of my audience, we'll just round it down to we'll round it to like 100,000. My audience is bigger than that, but I'm making math simple. If I converted 1% of my audience to spend, $30 on a 30 to spend $30, that's $30,000, man. I'll tell you what, most fighters ain't never gonna see that payday. Yeah.
Yeah,
you
man.
know. So what he's done is really, I think it's smart. I think it's cool, and I'm a big fan of decentralization, because that's what
Yeah.
you have to, because boxing's needed a facelift for how fighters and the money is made for a long time.
Hmm.
There ain't no pensions. There's no independent bodies that investigate a lot of stuff. There's a lot of backdoor handling. The judging is somewhat corrupt now. Not
Mm.
somewhat, it is corrupt. But now, dude, it is a this brings a lot more light on the sport, and it brings a lot of money, more money in the sport, and attention on the sport, and it's going to force change. And the UFC is next, because what Dana White did is smart. He learned a lot from what boxing
Yeah.
did wrong, but in doing so, he really capped what a lot of fighters are able to make, who are much bigger than what they get paid.
Hmm.
And dude, it's coming next, because when the UFC came up, no one's been able to challenge them, because no one really has thought about doing it, but someone will.
Definitely.
They'll create their own promotion. Everything's decentralized now. All you need is an internet connection and some cameras. You can get the license and everything, and it will put a run on. It'll be somebody that comes on with the same idea. Eddie Hearn has done the same thing in boxing. All of Eddie Hearn's pay-per-views cost the same as his DAZN subscription, 9.99 per month. That's why Anthony Joshua makes like 100 million a fight. That's why Canelo Alvarez is signed with Eddie Hearn. All it is to do, it is changing the game what the internet's doing, and what this guy's done, Jake Paul and John Bob, Jake and Paul Logan, I think, right, what they're doing. uh I'm 100% on board. I just, and only people who are against it don't understand boxing, or they benefit from the way the system is right now.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I definitely very intrigued to see what happens with UFC, like how that's gonna play
Oh,
out.
dude, I'm telling you, the only reason why no one's come for the UFC yet is because the UFC, the curve is steeper,
Yeah.
and Dana White has intelligently built stars. Like, he's done a
Yeah.
really good job of that. At the very least, making it UFC not that's a better way to put it. He's done a better job of branding UFC. It's to the
Hmm.
point people ask me, "Do you do UFC?" I'm like, "No, motherfucker. It's called mixed martial arts. UFC is just the promotion of mixed martial. They're not the only one. There's, Bellator, Strike Force, all that shit, right?
Yep.
That's just one, but that's how good branding is. There's not like no one thinks Top Rank, no one thinks Dazzin, no one thinks Golden Boy. They think boxing, and that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's on the same
It's really
level as
smart.
people think in NFL instead of football. People, but it hasn't quite happened, and maybe at least not in America with soccer. But people think NFL. That's how smart the branding is for football. They don't think football,
Yeah.
and I think the NBA's got that too. But that's the level. But it won't be very long, man. The NFL is, that's a different story.
Maybe for a different time.
Yeah.
I could talk all day about that business stuff though. That's really fascinating how like the Paul brothers have like leveraged themselves. Like it
Yeah, like
just
like they're not. When you look at what they're doing, they're not saying, "I'm gonna come in and clean up boxing." They're saying, "Oh,
yeah.
here's a business model, And fighters, if there are any, now you got to remember, fighters aren't the brightest people. The only way you end up in fighting is usually you have no other option. Very few guys today are like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go fight. Not really how it works. All right, instead of if you're athletic enough to make it in fighting, and you're not on the gridiron, the basketball court, the diamond, or the hockey, rink, you probably got a record or some shit. Like that's just and if you think I'm lying, go look up some fighters, right? That's just how it goes. Um, but but they're not coming in saying I'm gonna be these great athletes. They're like, watch me fight. I'll pick my opponents. It'll be entertaining. We'll make it look good, and that's what they've done. And they're making so much money. It's awesome, man. I'm nothing but the biggest. I haven't even watched their fights. I just understand what they're doing.
Yeah, I
And
haven't really either.
you know what I'm like when it comes to this. I imagine this is how guys feel about Bitcoin who are against like centralized banking,
Oh,
right?
totally,
That's how I feel
totally.
about. I should make that tweet, but like that's how I feel about the Logan brothers.
It's the same people that think that thing, right? They're like, I don't
Yeah.
like this. Like, what are they doing? You're supposed to go do it this way. And then it's like,
Nope.
it's all people who want to
They
like
didn't fight
attach.
amateur.
Yeah,
They didn't build themselves up, and anybody in the game should not hate. They should recognize why this is important
yeah.
and get behind them, but they won't because people are petty.
They don't recognize it's like business, right? I mean, it really is when it comes down to it. If you can't understand why this is a smart move, even if you don't like their style, their energy, or
Right.
whatever, like if you can't understand that this is an amazing opportunity for them, you're totally missing the point. Like also they're kind of just like jokesters, they like to just fuck with
Yeah.
people and like that's their thing. Like the whole like I got your hat. It's like
Right.
so ridiculous. And they did that just to like troll, like, and that's kind of part of the thing is they just like to mess around and have a good time, which is hysterical. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you having you on. It's been amazing getting to know you and getting some advice to these guys on masculinity and kind of the struggle and discipline and everything. I want you to real quick like plug where everyone can find you.
Oh man, dude, I'm
Mhm.
I'm I'm Ed Latimore everywhere. I'm Ed
Yeah,
Latimore on Twitter, Ed Latimore
yeah,
on Instagram, Ed Latimore on Facebook. At my website's edlatimore.com. Just type Ed Latimore and you'll be able to find me.
easy, right? And then the four confidences, right? I think that's a good one. I
That's my
think,
free ebook. Yeah, check it
yeah.
out. Really happy about it. Put it together to answer a question for myself, and then turns out a lot of other people had the same question. So, yeah, there's that.
Appreciate you coming on, man.
Hey, no problem, man. I appreciate you having me.